Ladies and gentlemen, as is practice, the Prime Minister has hailed his budget of 2025. He went up to the Finance Minister. He then congratulated her. So that all is part of protocol. It has happened. But I can tell you that India's salaried middle class is congratulating the Finance Minister as well for rejigging the tax slabs and ensuring that people who earn 1 lakh rupees a month and below don't have to pay any taxes, and that people who do pay taxes have to pay slightly less. How will this impact the economy? When will this impact the economy are questions that will be debated by economists. But for the moment, the big piece of information is that the demand that India's salaried middle class has had for the last 4 or 5 years about changing, rejigging the tax slabs, bringing taxes on the middle class down, that has happened. Many people can say too little, too late, but at least it has happened. Can I just introduce Sujit Paul, who's the Group CEO of Zota Healthcare, on the show. Sujit Paul, thank you very much. The budget has been wide-ranging. It has spoken about everything from restructuring India Post to becoming a way of providing logistics to rural India, to a Makhana board for Bihar, to cancer care centers. But there has been some focus on healthcare as well. Specifically, what I found interesting was cancer care, daycare cancer care centers in all district hospitals. Could you tell me, as far as the health industry is concerned, what are the big takeaways? What are the big headlines?
Sure, thank you so much. I think two big takeaways that I find is that this budget is extremely thoughtful and it is long-term solution for the aspirants of Indian health. For example, the finance minister have already announced that there will be huge numbers of additional seats in the medical facilities, which means that in India we would have more of our homegrown doctors who would be part of the unveiling of this budget. So what it would mean now for the 10,000 seats that's been announced, and in the next 5 years, and the 75,000 seats which have been announced, that would really help those aspirant students after NEET exams that they stay back in India and actually study medicines. So that's a big thing that have happened, because that's really a long-term horizon, well thought. In the next 5 to 6 years, that would actually emancipate. And the other is cancer. Even yesterday when I was speaking pre-budget, I did mention that I expect government to work a lot on cancer. If people have seen my speeches yesterday, and that's exactly what have happened today. That government have taken a lot of initiatives on not only cancer day centers, but on small cancer satellite areas that they would build, and also exemptions of lot of life-threatening and emergency medicines, which would really help Indians at large. So I think in put together, I think this is quite a holistic approach of what it is today for people, and what it is for the young aspirant MBBS students for who are coming. But I would have been more hopeful if government would have made mandatory that every physician in the country prescribes only through generic names, and then I think India would really become healthier much more faster. Of course, that's one thing that I would always urge the government to step up, that every physician or clinician must write through molecule or generic names, so that generic medicines at large can penetrate much more faster, and the mindset actually shifts and paradigm. But I think overall for healthcare, it's a good budget that we have seen. It always happens, dil mange more, but and it cannot always be in that way. But I think overall it's a great budget for healthcare.
Sujit, thank God you have added that note there, because when we get reactions from CII or FICCI, everything is visionary, perfect, great, wonderful. No one has anything negative to say. I mean, right now India's middle class is saying well done, but I'm sure industry, manufacturing will have their gripe. Unfortunately or fortunately, no one from these organizations has anything negative to say. Vijay Kumar, founder and CEO of Tsuyo Manufacturing, has the government, and you are someone who deals with EVs, which is a big focus of the government, has the government done in this budget enough to boost manufacturing? Because more than producing more cars, it is important to produce more jobs. Do you see enough in the budget that will produce more jobs in the next, say, 2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah, so this budget is definitely good towards EV manufacturing ecosystem, I would say. And definitely once you say it is a good booster to the EV manufacturing ecosystem, then it definitely supposed towards the job creation, new job creation, and new prospects in their livelihood. So, and a lot of opportunities for the new young generation towards deep tech, and then the resources which are coming through the as a fresh graduate, postgraduates. It is definitely for them. It is going to be a good prospects to pursue from the educational point of view. So definitely, coming years it will be a more job creation towards that.
Hmm. Hmm. Uh, can I just get in Professor Deepanshu Mohan? Professor Deepanshu Mohan, if you need to boost demand, if you need your economy to do well, what you need is more jobs. Because if people have more jobs, they have more money in their hands. They have more money in their hands. They will go out and spend. They will buy things. It will put money into the economy. Professor Deepanshu Mohan. The hope was that there would be enough in the budget to boost manufacturing. Do you see any encouragements towards that? Because the economic survey yesterday has sounded disappointed with India Inc. to say that, yeah, we gave you a tax break in 2019. From 30%, we reduced your corporate tax to 22%. We were hoping you would make more investments. We were hoping that you would create more jobs. You have not done that. Is there anything in this budget that tells you that manufacturing will increase, manufacturing opportunities will increase, because of which jobs will increase?
I think maybe in the MSME sector to a certain extent, and that's where I was saying that you have most of your job creation for those migrating from rural areas to urban areas or semi-urban areas, industrial jobs, factory workshops. But the main jobs that are being created in India are being in low skill services or middle skill services. Manufacturing only contributes partially to the employment generation story. To a certain extent, there was an argument made, and I think a few years ago, a lot of economists critical of government's supply side economic sort of formulation of giving tax breaks or allowing this higher capex of crowding in private investment were saying that a job security focused social welfare program, like an urban version of a Manrega, would be a good way for allowing job security for people, particularly where there is a lot of backward and forward migration. This hasn't really come through. The objective was, even if in certain states the government could announce a pilot version of a program like this, we would have seen greater confidence. Now, if the government doesn't want to spend on job security, the only way it has is to give tax breaks to job creating sectors, which are labor intensive. And I think there is evidence in this budget to a certain extent to try doing so. But as we said earlier, the fiscal capacity and the fiscal will of the government is very weak on that front. And I think that's the larger context. The other issue, which is for us, is on technological disruption, which is creating jobs losses in a very higher proportionate rate. It's not just AI, but a lot of what you consider as the gig economy jobs that are coming up are reasonably low paying, low middle income jobs. The quality of these jobs, the quality of employment requires a significant relook at. And this is where the skill deficit gap, which is something that is being expected now for the government to prioritize, needs urgent attention. There are skill development centers which the government tried to implement, but the success of these in being able to provide necessary skill sets for job creation is extremely weak. So I don't see a lot being done in that regard, but I think we have to be honest that the ability and the capabilities of the government in directly creating jobs is limited to either giving tax break to labor intensive manufacturing, or alternatively, what it can do is give job security. None of both has happened to that considerable extent.
Okay. Okay. Can I quickly get in Keki Mistry into the broadcast as well? He's the CEO of HDFC. Sir, thank you very much for joining us here on the Times Network. Can I start by asking you what your overall view of the budget is? And can you please start with personal income tax?
All right. So first of all, it's a very comprehensive budget covering every sector of the economy that you can think of, whether it is agriculture, whether it is the rural economy, whether it is consumption, whether it is even growth. And I'll explain why I'm saying growth. Personal income tax, increasing the exemption limit is a huge benefit to a very large part of India's population, and in my view, will certainly spur consumption. Now, I've heard some commentary from people on other channels that there should have been more allocation for infrastructure and more allocation for growth and things like that. But in my view, what has been done is absolutely the right measure. The government had all this while been investing in infrastructure. Now it is time for the private sector to start investing in infrastructure. And the way that has been facilitated is that by lowering this, increasing the exemption limit and leaving more money in the hands of people, it will spur consumption. When consumption gets a boost, automatically manufacturers have to produce more to satisfy that demand. And to produce more, they need to create new facilities, more spend money on capex, hire more people, create jobs. So all in all, I think very comprehensive budget. It has covered almost every aspect of what one could sort of look at, whether it is growth, whether it is job creation, whether it is consumption. And of course, rural economy and manufacturing.
Okay, so can I ask you this then? Again, as I've said this multiple times in the research that we've done, we are still not clear of what India's middle class is, sir. Different people have different definitions. I want to ask you how you define India's middle class and what this budget means for India's salaried middle class. Should someone who is earning 30 lakh rupees per annum be paying an income tax of 30% for you? Was the government being a little too cautious? Yes, they have revised the tax slabs, but were they being a little too cautious? Given the times we live in, given the inflationary pressures on us.
I think you ought to also take into account the fact that there is a certain amount of fiscal prudence that is required. If you had changed that limit from the 30% slab to a higher limit, I think the impact on tax collection would have been significant. And then that could have meant a higher fiscal deficit. Higher fiscal deficit could have meant higher interest rates, could have meant more inflation over time, and could also mean that hope that we could probably get a rating upgrade internationally could go away. If we continue showing fiscal discipline, and continue showing a reduction in our fiscal deficit, we have a chance of getting the international agencies to revise India's rating upwards. Now, it's a different issue that
sir,
ideally, if you ask
speaking about fiscal...
Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead, sir.
No, I was saying that this...
No, sir, please complete your point.
I was saying that we can argue, saying that the maximum marginal tax rate of 39% is genuinely a little high. So maybe at some point of time, what could have been done and what could perhaps be done in future is that the surcharge, the 30% tax rate is one thing, but in addition to the 30% surcharge, there is a surcharge which is applicable, which takes the effective tax rate at the highest slab to 39%. That, to my mind, could have been brought down a little bit, because we've seen that consumption has been relatively strong in recent times in the upper segment, in the premium segment, and weak at the lower segment. But now we are seeing there are signs that even at the upper segment, consumption seems to be tapering off a little bit.
Mr. Mistry, I have you back on screen as well. You're speaking about fiscal discipline. Can I just get in a question which many people could say is unrelated to what has happened today? But does fiscal discipline not get violated every time political parties, and not just the BJP, across the board, announce freebies, announce 2,100 rupees in the account of every rural woman in this country? My point is, if you're doling out these SOPs, and SOPs are different from welfare measures. I'm not saying don't give people free health. I'm not saying don't give people food to eat. Do that. That's a welfare measure. But to actually give cash into the accounts of people, how's that fiscal discipline? How will that encourage us to grow at a rate of 8% or 10% that is required for us to become Vikasit?
See, I would look at it a little differently. I'm not getting into the political side of it. But when you leave money in the hands of people, or when you give out money to to poorer segments of the economy, you are enabling them to, one, improve their standard of living, forget that is one, but two, improve consumption. Spend money on consumption. Now, when you spend money on consumption, you automatically get an economic boost, directly or indirectly. So you have to look at it from the broader macroeconomic
But sir,
segment.
where is the value being added?
I'm sorry?
But where is the value being added, sir? You have put money into someone's bank account, but the person is not working. So beyond boosting, consumption or demand, where is the value being created?
In a way, you're boosting demand, you're boosting consumption. So if consumption gets boosted, economy also gets boosted. I mean, these are complex economic theories without getting into the political side of whether to give money or not give money. But even when you give money to poor people, it's not that there is no economic benefit. There is an economic benefit because at the end of the day, that consumption will push the economic growth forward.
Okay, so Mr. Mistry, if I were to ask you to rate this budget, what would your rating be from 1 to 10? That's my last question.
Okay, so I think it's difficult to do rating, but because it is so comprehensive and, all the things that I was looking for in the budget, by and large have been met. I was looking at growth, and I think we will see growth, but we will not see direct growth because of government spending, but you will see indirect growth coming with a lag because of private sector capex picking up. So growth has been satisfied. Job creation, there are many measures for job creation. And of course, consumption is a big, big, big driver of the budget. Plus rural economy, manufacturing, all of this gets a boost. So the only area where I think a little something could have been done was the capital markets. But apart from capital markets, everything else has been met. So I would give the budget a rating of 8.5 out of 10 or something in that's praise.
Okay, you're being generous, Mr. Mistry. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time here on Mirror Now. Thank you so much. Can I just quickly welcome G. Hari Babu into the broadcast as well? Mr. Hari Babu, good to have you on the show. Namaskar to you.
Namaste.
What's your first take, the big headlines for you as far as the budget is concerned?
Yeah, 2-3 things. One is 7.5% GDP growth. That is a very important thing. So now we are all thinking of 6.6, 6.7. Now this is forecasted as 1.5 as GDP growth. Very important. Another thing is fiscal deficit of only 5.1. That is also a very good sign. Apart from this thing, we are all talking about sustainability, and, carbon emissions and all these things nowadays. The first time in India, I am seeing 100 gigawatts power is going to be generated by 2047 through nuclear power, which is the completely a revolutionary step. Okay, nobody is discussing about that, but the environmental point of view, I am very, very happy to discuss because our production, what we emit for every kilowatt, 713 grams of carbon we emit, whereas world average is only 440. And if you look at the country like France, they emit only 78 grams for every kilowatt. Almost we are 9 times higher than the France. So this is nothing to do with the budget and all this, but when we are talking about the environmental point of view, this is the greatest step. And the second thing is regarding the income tax. Everybody is telling about income tax up to 12,75,000 for employees and 12 lakhs for others is completely exempted. That means the average availability of the money for every person of taxpayer is about 8 to 10,000 rupees extra, because on 25 lakhs, the people are saving about 1,10,000 rupees tax. That means 10 to 11,000 rupees saving will be there, and that they are eligible almost like another 9 to 10 lakhs worth of loan. That makes the people who are interested to buy the realty from us, they're eligible more loans. So that is the very important thing, because now instead of giving to the 1 hour segment, the entire people of nearly 2 crores worth of middle class income group who got benefited this. Even 10% of looking at our real estate, there will be a good boom in that area. So, of course, directly, Finance Minister has not touched any requests of our housing point of view, except Swami funds. Swami funds was increased by 15,000 crores. Other than that, there is no touch on the real estate. But still, giving the exemption for the income tax indirectly boosts the reality.
Professor Deepanshu Mohan, is that exemption in personal income tax enough for middle class people to start thinking about buying a house? For example, even if you want to buy a house in, say, in a Noida, which is not exactly a Gurgaon, I mean, what you're looking at is 3 crore rupees.
Noida or Delhi. I'm not see.
No, sir, I know that. Of course, I understand that.
Are 5% to 6% population of India. We are largely think that it is 95% of the people are getting benefited. So 95% see, like South India,
no, I understand that.
Pradesh, Bihar, all these states, eligibility of another 10 lakh loan is a big boost. If somebody wants
I
to buy
understand
a
that, absolutely given. But it doesn't mean that we will not speak about the concerns of, you know, the salaried middle class that does live in India's metros. Because for those people, buying houses is out of reach. Professor Deepanshu Mohan, do you see anything in this budget, apart from the relief that we have gotten in our income tax, that will probably encourage us or give us some confidence to try and see, chalo, is saal ghar khareed lete hain?
No, there's nothing discussed about this budget, about the new things, about there's no special gifts to the urban reality.
No, so.
There's no
Dr.
special
Mohan?
debate or special discussion. There's no discussion at all.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, Deepanshu Mohan, would you come in as well?
Yes. I was waiting because... Yeah. No, I said the short answer is no, clearly. If you're expecting to buy a house and find that there's anything in the budget for us, I don't think so that's the case. You'd expect banks over time to be able to offer lower housing loan interest, and I don't even see that happening immediately with the banking situation we have. There's a liquidity crisis that is affecting the financial sector. I think it's a discussion for another time, maybe of what's really happening in the financial sector. But one of the things that I think the government has done where there is some positive, which is due, is on affordable housing projects. I think the PM Awas Yojana, which I believe was one of the, I think, reasonably better performing schemes, which has allowed for affordable housing projects in both urban and semi-urban areas, required a spending boost. I think there's a marginal increase in those allocations that has happened consecutively over the last 2-3 budgets, and I think that's welcome. But beyond that, I don't really see anything much beyond. I think one big issue is, as I said, inflation, and we have to understand that the measurement of inflation doesn't tend to account rent and rental prices that well. I think this is a technical issue which sometimes does not get mainstream attention. You have only weightage of roughly 5 to 10% of the housing prices in the inflation measurement. So the rental cost and the rental payments that have gone up, we have data now of urban consumption expenditures very clearly. Majority of the spending is in healthcare and rent, which has gone up for urban consumers and urban people. So healthcare, of course, India's adopted a very US-style insurance-based model. There are a lot of, again, issues, challenges with that, but there's some cost of healthcare out-of-pocket expenditure that would come down over time, maybe. But on housing, what you'd expect is until rental incomes do not have some kind of a price ceiling, you need to have, you have a price ceiling effect from airline price, right? As soon as airline fares go up beyond a certain market rate, you have the government stepping in. You need something like that at decentralized level for rents. And I think that is a major chunk for where urban consumption expenditure went. But that's a reform, again, I don't think which is beyond the scope of this budget.
Chaliye. Okay, before I wrap, Pradeep Mahor, a quick word about Bihar. We understand Bihar is going to elections this year, right? But the finance minister, she began her speech with Bihar and announcing the Makhana board. And the poor other states and union territories were wondering, humko kyun chhod rahe ho? She wore, of course, a Madhubani sari, a beautiful Madhubani sari, and we knew that Bihar would find focus in this election. But ye kuch zyada obvious nahi kar diya?
No. It was not related to elections at all. Understand? Bihar is a developing state. And when
Mr.
we are
Mohan.
developing states like Uttar Pradesh, understand, Uttar Pradesh is second in the row as far as the GDP contributors are concerned. So ultimately, we have to bring other states up. So Bihar, why not? Bihar is a big state. So ultimately, we need to focus. As far as makhana is concerned, makhana is the asset of Bihar. We should be focusing on exporting makhanas. So what we have to do? We have to add some kind of leverage in that kind of industry so that they become they have a potential to export. So this is what we have done. So if somebody is going to connect it politically to elections, I mean, definitely they can, because elections are a part of it. Because what happens is,
Dr.
when
Pooja
we are talking
Tripathi,
about elections, ultimately we are talking
Suniye,
about good
let's
to the
get in
people.
Dr. Pooja Tripathi, na?
Yeah.
Shreya, last
Wait,
year,
let's get in Dr. Pooja Tripathi. Dr. Pooja Tripathi, go ahead.
I'll say it was not a union budget, it was Bihar's budget, because not only the Madhu was a symbolism, everything. There were five announcements was Bihar. Last year it was Andhra Pradesh, if you can remember. Next year it will be Uttar Pradesh, and after that it will be Gujarat. You know, the national development, inflation control measures, indirect tax reforms, simplifying the GST structure, everything can take a job creation, everything can take a backseat. But winning elections is important. So it was just a political, 5 major discussions, be it Makhana board, be it Greenfield airports, the IITs, everything. It was Bihar, because Bihar is going into elections. And we saw that in past too, and we'll see in the coming years too. Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat is the next in line. Agle saal, Ms. Sitharaman would wear something Banarsi from Uttar Pradesh, and then she'll start her opening budget with a huge allocation to Uttar Pradesh, and next year she'll wear a Patan Patola from Gujarat, and then she'll have a huge allocations for Gujarat. This whole political signaling of a budget, when people are looking forward to a budget, when people are looking forward for relief in manufacturing sectors, in MSME, in the last 12 months, 12,000 MSMEs have shut down. You were just asking somebody about job creation. Nothing, as I said in my opening statement, nothing is about job creation. Manufacturing is stuck at 15%. The capex cuts show that government is not ready to spend on big projects. There is no urban employment guarantee. Terming housewives as somebody, who are actively involved in creating labor will not solve the problem. You have to do something about gender gap in the labor force.
Dr. Pooja Tripathi.
Nothing, but it was all Bihar.
Okay, you've made your point. You've made your point about Bihar. I'm surprised you didn't say anything about Delhi, given the fact that Delhi is going to elections in the next few days, and Delhi is a place that houses a large number of urban middle class Indians who could be seeing this budget and saying, at least हमारे लिए तो कुछ कर दिया इस बार. चलिए हो गया. Time for me to go have lunch, for all of you to have lunch as well. Thank you all very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Dr. Tripathi, thank you. Pradeep Mahar, thank you very much. Professor Deepanshu Mohan, thank you. Good to have you on the show. Vijay Kumar ji, thank you. Sujit Paul, good to have you on the show. Ji Hari Babu, thank you very much. Thanks to all our guests for putting the budget in perspective for us. A lot gets announced. Much of it is complex. Much of it needs to be deciphered. Our guests have done that for us. Ladies and gentlemen, a quick break. Our focus on India's urban middle class and the relief they have got as far as taxes are concerned continues to be our big focus. Do stay with us.